Hello, this is Jeff Sullivan with the Dell Tech Center. This demo shows how easy it is to incorporate a new PS6000 array into an existing EqualLogic group. I have a number of PS5000s in this array, some running SAS, some running SATA, and what we're going to do is go look at what the name of our group is, which in this case is EqualLogic Group 1, and there's the group IP address. I'm going to set up the array using the Host Integration Toolkit, which can be downloaded from our support site or comes on the media when you get a new array. I'm running this on a Windows 2008 actual virtual machine installed on a SUSE Linux Enterprise Server 11 Zen host. I'm going to go ahead and click Next on the usuals and accept the license agreement. I'm going to do a typical installation. You'll notice it says it does require a reboot, and we'll go through that as well. First thing, it says the Microsoft iSCSI Initiator service is not running. Is it okay to start the service and enable the traffic through the firewall? I say yes. And again, now we want to start the service. Each time we start our computer, we say yes. And then again, do we want to unblock it so it can communicate through the firewall? And I'm also going to say yes. It'll pop up the iSCSI Initiator Properties window. Just say OK, and we'll click back over to the installation. It says the firewall is enabled to do multipath I/O. You've got to enable or allow echo requests, and we are going to allow that. And that's it. Click Next to begin the installation. I did edit the demo for time, so some of these installation tasks are sped up a little bit. Our demo got it down to 11 minutes, but in total it was about 16, to give you an idea. So here's the multipath I/O requires the feature to be installed. We are going to go ahead and install Microsoft Multipath I/O automatically. Alright, that's done. We're going to go ahead and launch our remote setup wizard. This is a component of the Host Integration Toolkit. Before we do that, it's saying, hey, you got to reboot your system. Yes, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So go ahead and click OK. Reboot the system. Amazingly fast when you can edit your demo. Go ahead and log back in, and when you log in, right after the reboot, it'll prompt you with the remote setup wizard. And so yes, I do want to initialize a PS series array. You have the other options to configure the MPIO for this computer or configure this server's access to the SAN. It did find the array automatically without us having to do anything. That's because it'll send out essentially a chirp letting it know it's here. There is some details, so you can make sure that is the array that you want to initialize. That was the first thing I did, is go verify serial numbers. Okay, so we're going to put in our information. I've got a couple of free IP addresses up in this particular range. Before I started this demonstration, I'd like to note that I did have to update the firmware on the existing arrays to current levels. I'm naming this R5 PS6000 because it's in our rack 5. That's how we designate our box names. So here's the address that I'm going to use. Subnet mask. It'll put in the gateway for us, and I'm going to select the option down on the bottom that says Join an Existing Group. Now you'll notice you have the option if this was a new group. You could do that here. For the purposes of this demo, we're joining an existing one. Oops, looks like I picked the wrong IP address. Let me go back and put one that's not being used out there. Verify that real quick. Okay. Alright, get a little bit further this time. In the existing group that we're going to join, we looked up earlier, it's going to be EqualLogic Group 1 with the IP address and then the password for that particular group. click next. So it'll go through and initialize. It does take a couple of minutes, and I accelerated it for this demo. And I wanted to show this. I thought about taking this out, but just to show you some of the things I ran into. You'll notice it says we have to go through and actually turn off the downgrade firmware option to add this PS6000 SSD into the existing array. So I just logged into the existing array and then told it disallow downgrade, said yes, and then went back and restarted the installation again, which it already still had the information that we had discovered before. I didn't have to re-put that in. Go ahead and put in an IP address and click next. Put the group name back in. So again, one of those gotchas that I ran into. The other being the firmware. I just had to go through and update all my arrays to the current version. So after the disallow firmware option, I go back to initializing the array again, and it took, I want to say, 3 minutes or so, but I'll accelerate. It looks like actually closer to 1.5 minutes, and there it is. You'll notice in the background it appeared in my Equalogic Group Manager screen. It says your new member was successfully added. Click yes to start the GUI. We already have the GUI started, so no reason to do that. I'm going to go ahead and click on no here. Alright, and finish. We'll switch over to our Group Manager screen. You can see the PS6000's down there at the bottom, but it's currently in a status of unconfigured. Also want to point out there's a couple of, and I'm going to go ahead and immediately it asks me if I want to configure the RAID. I'm going to say yes. You'll notice there's a couple of warnings on here, and this is some operator headspace stuff that I ran into. Our lab environment was getting pretty warm, and so we had some temperature alerts happening there. We were able to fix those after the demo. But also the power supply. When I pushed the racks back together, I accidentally popped out one of the power cords. So here I am configuring the RAID settings. You'll see there's not much to it. Yeah, create a new pool. I'm going to call it SSD because I want to make sure that I get the performance out of this new array. I'm going to go ahead and select RAID 10. You can see that you can select 50, 10, 5, or 6, and I'm going to immediately expand the group capacity and go ahead and click on next. And then click on finish. And about this time is where I discovered the power supply, or paid attention to the power supply warning. I ran back to the back of the rack and plugged it back in, so that warning will go away here in just a minute. This particular SSD is only half configured. Or array, we only bought 8 disks instead of 16. That's why you see the X's down there. So the RAID status will build. It'll take a few minutes, and then it'll be a RAID status of OK. And I immediately went into creating a volume on our new array. Just did a test SSD. Since I only have 130 gig, I'm going to go ahead and save 40, save some for later. Limit access, you have the typical CHAP authentication. We just here in the lab we just limit by IP address, and that's about it. Click on next, and then finish, and our volume's created. So I'm going to switch over to the host. Actually go back into the Host Integration Toolkit and set up this particular host, configure this computer's access to the PS Series SAN. So instead of me having to worry about the target and the initiator, I can just go ahead and have the HitKit do that for me. So I'm going to put in the group name and then say finish. And so now it's configured this host, and so if we go look at the iSCSI initiator, you'll notice that our targets, our discovery, our targets are already there. And if we expand the targets here, I had some in this particular array that were accessible by other systems, but you'll see that our test SSD name is right here at the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and log on. I do want to restore it when it restarts and enable multipath. Go ahead and say OK. And now we're connected. And we'll say OK. We'll start up the storage, disk management. And there's our volume. We can go ahead and initialize and format. This has been Jeff Sullivan with the Dell Tech Center. Thanks for your time.